Hey everybody, it's Sarah Shaler, and I am here making my video to share with you my thoughts on completing the MSW program through ASU. So something that I don't really talk about a whole lot with anybody is when I started the MSW program, it was because I had a career in law enforcement. I was a police officer, and I got hurt when I was on duty, and the injury caused permanent damage, and as a result, I lost my career that I had spent 4 years going to college for and did a 6-month-long internship with a major local police department. So I started doing the MSW program because social work was the closest thing that I could find to law enforcement, and I thought that it would be a good fit for me because I had a lot of experience in crisis intervention because I was part of the crisis intervention team for our local county that I live in. So I thought that social work would be a pretty decent fit and a relatively easy transition. But to be 100% candid, I was not really looking forward to the program. I had never intended on going to graduate school and getting my master's. I had never intended on doing anything other than law enforcement, and I was pretty bitter and resentful about having lost my career and everything that I had worked really hard for. So it was a little bit of a difficult pill for me to swallow. And for the first 2 semesters, I wasn't really enjoying the program that much because I felt like, had kind of been cheated out of my real lifelong dream. So fast forward a little bit to the end of my first year, beginning of my second year, and I kind of started to take a little bit of a different look at things. I was coming to terms with the fact that I had lost my law enforcement career. I was coming to terms with the fact that I was completing graduate school, whether I really wanted to or not. And I was starting to open my mind to some other career options that I hadn't really considered before. And part of that was brought on by my internships. The first one I did was at a nonprofit that works with kids who are in the foster care system. And my second one was done at an early childhood mental health department for an agency that customizes services for special needs kids. So both of those internships really kind of helped change my perspective and the way that I was feeling about everything. But the second one especially, I think, is what really turned it around for me and made me feel like I could actually be a social worker at some point. Because I had never, up until my second internship, which I started in summer of 2019, I never really was able to call myself a social worker or view myself as a social worker. And even when other people referred to me as a current or future social worker, it just felt really foreign to me and misplaced. So my 2 internships and the second one in particular really kind of helped put everything into perspective for me and allowed me to view myself as a social worker. So now that I'm in my final 72 hours of being a graduate student, I can confidently say that I am not only able to view myself and consider myself a social worker, but I feel like a much more rounded person, just in general as a human being, for having done this program. I feel like I have a much better understanding of society and humans and different cultures, both from a broad perspective and also from the populations that I've worked with since I started this program. I feel much more educated, and I don't necessarily mean that from like an academic point of view, but just from a worldly view, I guess. I feel much more equipped to speak with people from different backgrounds, different cultures, different upbringings, different socioeconomic classes. And even if I'm not able to personally relate to where they've been, where they're going, where they are, I think that I have developed these skills to be able to provide services that are, morally grounded and ethical and, high quality to anybody whereas I don't know that I would have been able to say that before, because even though law enforcement and social work kind of overlap each other in a lot of different areas, the core of it is different, the viewpoint of it is different, and the perspective that you have when you talk to people and deal with people is different, because there's two different goals at stake. And so I'm very appreciative of the decision that I made 2 years ago to force myself to go to graduate school, because there were, obstacles presented to me that I didn't have any control over. So in retrospect, it was one of the better decisions I've ever made, and I'm thankful for it, and I'm glad that I did it. It was a lot of hard work, and even though there were times where I just wanted to give up and be done with it, I'm thankful now for the hard work, because it helped me become a better person, a better student, a better social worker, and just a better human being. I think I am very grateful for the understanding that I have of people now having completed this program. So a couple of things I think that I would mention to any future students that are thinking about doing the MSW program or are just starting the program. First and foremost, I think, and I wish somebody would have told me this when I started, is it's going to be so much more work than you think it's going to be. But try to manage those days where you feel overwhelmed. And I'm not going to say don't feel overwhelmed or try to not feel overwhelmed, because you're going to. I mean, that's just the reality of it. So when those days happen, and there will be a lot, I would say just take it a day at a time. And if you have to, take it an hour at a time. And if that doesn't work, take it 5 minutes at a time. Pace yourself. Be aware of your boundaries and your limits. And if you're pushing yourself too hard and you need to take a day to just rest and decompress, then do that. But just don't ever stop. And, if you can't do the full-time program, then do part-time. Whatever you need to do to just continue to grow and develop as a person and as a professional, then that's what you need to do. Secondly, I think one recommendation that I would make, and I know that this is kind of mentioned in the paperwork that we fill out for the internships anyway, but I think that there needs to be a little bit more emphasis placed on this. Another recommendation that I would make for incoming students would be use your practicums as an opportunity to explore the world of social work. I wish I would have been a little bit more selective with my first internship, because while it was good and I learned a lot and I met some great people, it didn't give me the experience that I really hoped for or that I felt like I needed at the time. And even now I still am a little bit regretful, because I wished I would have found a different placement. So if you are not 100% set on where you want to end up professionally once you graduate, use your practicums as an opportunity to explore, because there's so many different arenas of social work that you can go into, and so many different roles that a social worker can have. And so I wish I would have been a little bit more adventurous when it came to my first practicum, because I think it probably could have helped me narrow down a little more specifically what I want to do, in the end game, when I graduate and I'm done. So I think those are probably the two most important recommendations that I would have, is just to take it a day at a time, and to never stop, and to use this learning opportunity to learn what kind of social worker you want to be, and to become more educated and more well-rounded. So that's about all I got, guys. It's been a great journey and a great trip, and thank you all for being a part of it.